Okay, let's talk about what a unit fraction is. As you can see on the screen, I have a definition for you. It says unit fractions are fractions with a numerator of 1, representing part of one whole that has been divided into equal parts. So, um, in general, that's what all fractions are, except the numerator of 1. Numerator of 1 specifically is a unit fraction because it is only one of those pieces. So, for example, I have several of them right here for you to look at. We have 1/2, 1/3, 1/4, 1/5, and 1/6 or 1/7. I guess you can probably see what I did there. He's trying to do the little hand motion for you. But anyway, all of these have one thing in common, and that is their numerator of 1. So 1/2 is 1 out of 2 pieces. 1/3 is 1 out of 3 pieces. And then so on. Out of 4 pieces, 1 out of 5, 1 out of 6, 1 out of 7. So as we've been talking about fractions, we've also discussed something with the denominators. The smaller the denominator, the larger size pieces. Whereas the bigger the denominator, the smaller size pieces. And we show that with models. So here's two models that I've cut up. I have a circle and then a square box. The circle has been cut into three equal size pieces. So if I wanted to say, well, what unit fractions make up this circle, I would have to say, well, this is 1/3, this is 1/3, and this is 1/3. What I could also do using just a number sentence to show this, an addition sentence, I could do 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 equals 1 whole. Of course, we could also say it equals 3/3, but we know that 3/3 is also equal to 1 whole because you have 3 out of 3, or 1. So if we immediately go over here, we see, well, this is 1 out of 4. This is 1 out of 4, 1 out of 4, and this is 1 out of 4. So I could also represent that by saying, well, that is 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4, and that also equals 1 whole. Because if I add all four of those together, I have the entire thing. Okay. Now we could also take this one step further, because if you'll notice in my addition sentences, I'm adding the same unit fraction, the same number over and over. And that is repeated addition. Now I want you to think for just a moment about what repeated addition means, because we've actually talked about this several times in math class. Repeated addition means multiplication. Okay, if you're adding the exact same number over and over and over, no matter how many times, you are multiplying that number. You're skip counting. So we could even take this a step further. We could say this is 1/3 plus 1/3, 1 plus 1/3, or we could say we have three groups of 1/3. In other words, we have 3 times 1/3, and that would equal 1. Okay, so again, I want you to think of this not just as 3 times 1/3. I want you to think we have three groups of 1/3. Up here we had three groups of 1/3. This is the same thing. So down here, I could take this down here and say, well, how many groups of 1/4 do I have? I can see in my picture too. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I do 4 groups times what's in the groups, 1/4. So 4 groups of 1/4 would equal 1. It would equal 1 whole. Okay, so that is the mathematical way to think about it, but you can also just try, just in your head to remember quickly, just a little shortcut here. If you are multiplying, because 3 is a whole number, if you are multiplying a whole number by a unit fraction, now remember, what do we say? Unit fractions have a numerator of 1. So if your fraction does not have a numerator of 1, it is not a unit fraction because 1 unit is 1 piece. So it's what that 1 equal size piece is worth. So if you have a whole number times a unit fraction and the whole number and the denominator match, the answer is always 1. So 3 times 1/3, 1 whole. Here, the denominator and the whole number match, and it's a unit fraction because the numerator is 1. 4 times 1/4 also equals 1. We proved it by the addition sentence, and we also proved it with our models. Because remember, this doesn't just say 3 times 1/3. You could also think of that as 3 groups of 1/3. 3 groups of 1/3. 4 groups of 1/4. So again, you're just adding them together, and that is repeated addition, which means multiplication. Okay, so that was just a quick overview of what these are, and now we can practice this together and on your own in class.